I had a strategy sprint with a client yesterday, and I realized that I've never made a video, certainly hadn't made any kind of diagram of how I sell strategy engagements. This is something I've been doing since 2016. It's second nature to me now. And as I was explaining how I do it to my one on one coaching client, I thought, what if I just show him the decision tree that I use? And when I mentioned that to him, he said, that would be great. Can you show that to me? And so as we were getting lunch, I drew what you see in front of you, this decision tree. I'm going to explain it. Hopefully, this helps you if you want to sell more strategy. So, let me say right out of the gate that some clients, they don't want to buy strategy. They just want to buy the project. They want to do the project, hire you to help them with it, the project that they reached out about initially. So they're going to get irritated if you pump the brakes in the conversation and try to say, well, hey, we ought to do this strategy work first. Even if they might benefit from that, you might just lose the project because they're going to go find someone who will just do the project with them. So I'm going to get to that in a second, how I approach situations like that. And so bear that in mind. But let's go back to the beginning. And the beginning is what you see with contact here. You make contact with somebody. Maybe there's a referral or introduction that happens. Maybe you do cold outreach. You send someone a letter. You send them a DM on LinkedIn. You reach out with an email. Maybe the person is a friend of a friend, and so your relationship is already warmer. Maybe they came to you. There are all these different ways that we come into contact with someone, right? So when I come into contact with someone and they say, and you'll see this little thought bubble above contact, if they say something like, I'd like to pick your brain, or I want to get your perspective, or I could use some advice, or I'd like to bounce ideas off of you, I immediately, instead of getting on a discovery call with them, I immediately say, hey, yeah, happy to share my perspective, happy to talk through your ideas. I book all of my clarity calls, and then I have my boilerplate message, what's essentially a boilerplate message. So if someone is asking for consulting using that language that I already just mentioned, I just skip straight to the clarity call because I just don't do free coaching and free consulting anymore. Most of the time, when there's some initial contact, like I meet somebody new, I need to start moving them through my sales process. And so what that looks like for me is following up with an initial set of questions, or even a questionnaire if I have a questionnaire that is specific to what they're asking about, whether it's a website or a brand or some other type of project that I've done a lot of. So I have this initial set of questions that I will ask. If the conversation or context that I already have isn't tied to a specific project, then I do reach for a different set of questions. And those questions, just to give you an idea, are things like, hey, why did so-and-so think we ought to meet? Or, hey, what are you trying to grow this year? Or, hey, any big business moves in store for you this year? So I'm just trying to figure out what's on their mind. That way, before we show up to a discovery call, and to be clear, I do try to get every new person I meet who I think could become a client, I try to get them on a discovery call. You can call it a consultation, call it whatever you like. I've heard uh, I've heard these calls called connect calls. You're just connecting with them. You're not trying to sell them anything. So my friend John Meese calls them serve calls. I'm trying to serve you. I'm not trying to sell to you. Whatever you call it, I'm trying to get everybody on a call so I can spend time with them in real time. But before I show up to that call, I want to make sure that I have some context. Why do I want context before I show up to that call? Because if I can get some of the preliminary questions out of the way, I can spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes thinking about what follow-up questions I want to ask. So, for example, if in my preliminary set of questions, I ask, what are you trying to grow this year? And they say something like, well, we're launching a new brand. I'm like, very interesting. And then I might use that one remark they made or one insight they gave me to create that list of follow-up questions. So I come to that discovery call having a set of questions that I want answered. And a lot of those questions, which I think about more as like almost onboarding questions, like if we were to work together, these are the questions that would give me real insight into what the project is. So for these initial questions, I almost think of them as intake questions. The questions that I want to get answered during the discovery call, I think of as onboarding questions. I want to come into the discovery call having some context, already being able to ask and have answered a set of custom follow-up questions. That way, I'm able to arrive at, during that first call, enough clarity. I have enough clarity that I can offer them some recommendations after the call. So in my mind, the purpose of a discovery call is to understand what problems or challenges or opportunities does this person have? Based on the type of work that I enjoy doing and the type of work that I'm good at, do they have problems or challenges or opportunities? Do they have needs that I can help with? And if they do have needs I can help with, what do I recommend? I want to get answers during the discovery call, whether it's 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Sometimes the length varies, but I want to get answers so that when I send the recap email, I'm already in a position to make a set of recommendations or just one recommendation, right? So we finish the discovery call. I normally do not get into any kind of pricing. Instead, I'll say, hey, yeah, give me a couple days to wrap my head around our conversation. I'll send a recap email. That recap email will contain the main things that I heard you say, the main things that we discovered together, and it will also contain some recommendations. And if I see an opportunity for us to work together, then I may also include some pricing. So in that recap email, I structure it so that the questions come at the beginning, and the questions they're part of the intro of the email. So the first part of the email or the most important part of the intro, I should say, is questions. And you'll see that bullet point here. And question or questions goes like this. Hey, Jen, thanks so much for taking the time to talk yesterday. Below, you'll find a recap of our conversation. Is the recap accurate? Did I leave out anything important? Below the recap, you'll find my recommendations. I included a couple of options. Which of these options is the better fit for you? So the way I structure my recap emails is there's an intro that includes the questions. There's the recap of the conversation from the discovery call, and then recommendations. I like the questions because it's such a stronger way to move a conversation forward than saying something like, let me know what you think. I ask a question. Is the recap accurate? Is one of the recommendations or is one of the options I recommended good for you? How do they land with you? Okay, so what recommendation do I make? And this is really where I make the decision, am I going to sell strategy or not, right? And if I'm going to sell strategy, what is the scope of that strategy engagement? How long will it last? What will we do? What will the outcomes be? So if I talk to somebody for 30 minutes and it's clear to me that they just need some questions answered about branding or marketing or better understanding how freelancers think or any number of areas where I have expertise, if they just need some clarity and some advice, I may just say, hey, let's do a paid consulting call. I call these clarity calls. They typically run 60 minutes. Here's the price. So if I think what they need more than anything is just an expert to answer questions for them, I'll recommend something about 60 minutes long. And I just call that a call. If I think they need something a bit more in depth, I offer them a strategy session. Strategy sessions, compared to calls, run about 90 minutes. And there's normally some sort of deliverable or report that I give them afterwards. So in a call, I don't prepare. We just show up. They ask questions. I give answers. Strategy session, I might send them a questionnaire beforehand to get more information from them, better understand the problem they're solving for or the question they're trying to answer. I may create a little bit of an agenda for that session. We show up, we do the session, and then afterwards, I may deliver my findings, or I may have a 1-page or a 2-page report or a roadmap, right? But still, what am I doing with a strategy session? I'm delivering clarity, advice, strategy, expertise, maybe even helping them with some planning. Now, you'll also notice the dollar signs. Clarity call, $1 sign, right? It's the least expensive of the options. Strategy session, $2 signs. The next option is a workshop. Now, in contrast to a strategy session, workshops will run 3 to 4 hours, so twice as long as a strategy session. The workshop may just result in a roadmap. The roadmap may be the only deliverable, or sometimes if the workshop is more problem specific, so it's not, hey, let me help you create your strategy. It's let me help you with your core messaging. Well, I may actually just give them core messaging instead of a roadmap. Sometimes it's a blend. Sometimes they have a few high-level things they want to discuss, and then they want to accomplish something very specific, like we want to work on our key differentiators and our positioning statement, right? So I have a variety of workshops. Some of them are need or topic specific. I have workbooks, exercises, playbook that I use for those need-specific workshops. Or if it's just more generally focused on growth strategy or marketing strategy, then I will use my, not boilerplate, but I have a list of questions, a toolkit of questions that I will use to bring structure to the workshop, make sure I pull out the insights from them so that we have everything we need to create a strategy document or a roadmap or a plan. Okay, next, sprint. A sprint is 2 to 3 times as long as a workshop. It may last for a day and a half, 2 days. That's why it's $4 signs. It's just more involved, right? And a sprint, kind of like a workshop, may result in just the strategy doc, or it may be a strategy doc plus some deliverables. To give you an example, in late December of 2025, I did a 1-day growth sprint with a client who has a food company. And so I delivered the strategy document afterwards. I also delivered a marketing plan, a marketing schedule. I gave her my template for brand books. So she does not have a brand book. I gave her a template to say, fill this in. And then finally, I did help her with some core messaging and product copy. So sprints are more involved. You may have a handful of deliverables that you button up and send over after you finish the sprint. And I even think it's fine, even if you have like a 1-day or a 2-day container for the sprint, I even think it's fine to do 1 or 2 follow-up sessions as needed to put the finishing touches on a strategy doc or one of the deliverables. For example, that client I mentioned, I scheduled a follow-up call for us to put the finishing touches on some of the copy that is going to go on her product labels. I felt great about that. I felt great about my effective hourly rate across the entire engagement. So I wasn't like losing money, so to speak, by being generous with my time. That's how I structure sprints that may include some deliverables or itty bitty projects, right? This is one thing that trips a lot of freelancers and consultants up. They want to sell strategy and they're like, well, do I just like do a strategy sprint and then walk away? And I'll give the most frustrating answer, right? Well, it depends. What does the client need? Sometimes they need to make a mess, do some dreaming, talk about their problems. Then they need to create a plan, and then they need help solving some of these discrete problems. And that's fine. A deliverable can solve a discrete problem. So let me go back for a second. What happens when you send a recap email and it's pretty clear after the discovery call to you, it's pretty clear to you that they're not really going to be interested in pumping the brakes and slowing down and doing strategy work. They really just want the new website. They really just want new product copy for the website. They really just want a marketing plan. Like, give me the deliverable or the pretty well-defined set of deliverables. They have a project. Will you do this project for us? Normally in those situations, I don't try to redirect them to a strategy session or a workshop or a sprint because they know what they want. And if I don't give them what they want, they'll go to someone else who will give them what they want. So in those situations, when a client already comes to you with a lot of clarity, just give them what they want, right? Give them the website, give them the new pitch deck, give them the new copywriting, right? So sell the project. And that's why I put that other arrow down here. These 4 containers, call, session, workshop, sprint, these 4 containers for selling strategy, I put those under the thinking umbrella. Not every client needs that, as I just mentioned. Some clients, they just want the doing. They just want to hire you for your creative skills. They may already have a good strategy. So what do? Well, sell them what they want to buy. Could be a project, could be a retainer. Maybe you take the clarity from the discovery call, you think about the problems they need solved or the needs they have, and you think, I'm not the right person. So you refer them elsewhere, right? Now, let me offer one small caveat before I end. There are people, plenty of them, who think, I don't need strategy. We're fine. And then they say, we need this project, like a website. You're like, okay. And then you ask questions, you keep pulling on that thread. You're like, they don't know what the brand is. I asked, what's your value proposition? What are your differentiators? And they could not give me a succinct answer. So they don't think they need strategy. And I'm like, well, you don't have a brand strategy, so you do need strategy. What do you do in those situations where you're talking to a client who needs some of what you might deliver? Brand strategy, growth strategy, messaging strategy, positioning, marketing strategy, right? They need some of the stuff that you would do before you got into like a brass tacks project. Well, there's no reason you can't sell them what they want, which is the project, and then just make sure that phase one involves whatever planning or remedial brand development or strategy work that you believe is required to execute the project really, really well. So make sure you charge for it. This is another area where it's another log that freelancers trip over. Is we've all done a lot of thinking work for years. We just haven't been charging for it. And so the slight paradigm shift is we'll never do the thinking work without charging for it. Don't sell two projects as one. Make the thinking work, the strategy work, a distinct phase that precedes the doing work, and charge for it. So always charge for strategy, even if clients don't think they need it. Last thing, I have found that sometimes after a workshop, especially after a sprint, when you've crafted this strategy document, they may need ongoing help to implement the strategy, to run the playbook, so to speak. There's no reason you can't sell a retainer on the back end of a workshop or like a 1 day or 2 day growth sprint. You've given them this roadmap or this strategy doc. They just may need more support on the journey. Great. Sell that to them. So that's why I drew this arrow from sprint to retainer. There are often opportunities to keep working with these clients to help them implement the strategy you just created with and for them. Okay. I think I've covered everything. Looks like it. So I hope that clarifies how someone like me, maybe even like you, who gets this mixed bag of leads. Some people, they just want a cut and dry project. More people probably need to get some clarity, set direction, define next steps, even before they're ready to do that cut and dry project. This is how I sell strategy engagements, while also sometimes just selling people the cut and dry project that they initially asked for. So my name is Austin L. Church. You can find more of my thinking and writing and training at freelancecake.com. And yeah, reach out if you want help learning how to do this, how to sell more strategy. That's it for now. See ya.